Title: Have you ever caught a guy looking at you? What his eyes were trying to say: have you ever caught a guy looking at you? And for a split second, everything around you just froze. The noise faded, your heartbeat got louder, and you wondered, what did that look mean? Was it curiosity, admiration, or something deeper he couldn't say out loud? This is where our story begins. The moment that changed everything. It was a quiet autumn afternoon at a small coffee shop near campus. Maya sat by the window, lost in her notebook, headphones on, pretending to study, but really she was replaying fragments of her week. Life had been heavy lately. She'd just moved to a new city, chasing a degree and a dream. But loneliness had found her first. As she looked up to stretch her neck, her eyes accidentally met his. He was sitting across the room, dark hair, calm expression, a book in his hand, untouched coffee beside him. For a heartbeat, neither of them looked away. It wasn't awkward, just quietly electric, that kind of eye contact that doesn't feel like a coincidence, but like a connection, the glance that spoke volumes. She blinked, breaking the moment, pretending to check her phone. But when she glanced up again, he was still looking, not staring, just observing, with a softness that almost felt like recognition. You know that feeling when someone's gaze feels warm, not invasive, like they're not seeing your face, but your thoughts. That's what it felt like. Maya wondered if she was imagining it. Maybe he was just lost in thought. Maybe his gaze had simply landed on her by chance. But every few minutes, she caught him again, a glance, a look away, a half smile. And every time, it stirred something she hadn't felt in a while, curiosity mixed with comfort. The silent language. For days afterward, it kept happening. Same cafe, same time, same table by the window. He would arrive, order his usual, and read. She would sit, pretending not to notice, but always noticing. They hadn't exchanged a single word. Yet somehow, they were talking. Psychologists say up to 93% of communication is nonverbal. And Maya was beginning to understand what that meant. His eyes had started saying things his lips hadn't dared to. Sometimes they said, "I see you." Other times, "I want to, but I don't know how." It was a silent story, told in seconds of connection, glances that lasted just long enough to mean something, but not long enough to say everything. Behind his eyes. But what she didn't know was that his name was Arman, a final-year architecture student who'd been coming to that cafe for months, long before she ever walked in. He was quiet, brilliant, but socially anxious. He'd always been the guy who found it easier to express emotions through sketches than words. The first time he saw her, she was laughing with a friend, and for some reason that sound stayed in his head all week. The second time, she was alone. The kind of alone that looked too familiar. That's when his eyes started speaking. He wanted to talk to her. He wanted to ask her name, but fear held him back. So he did the only thing he could. He looked. And every time their eyes met, a spark replaced what words had failed to create. The day silence broke. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the cafe was almost empty, Maya's pen rolled off her table and stopped at Arman's feet. He picked it up, and for the first time, their connection became real. "Here," he said softly, handing it back. His voice was calm, gentle, exactly what she imagined it would be. Their fingers brushed for less than a second, but that second held more meaning than hours of conversation. "Thank you," she replied, smiling shyly. "You're welcome," he said, and then hesitated, as if his courage had been waiting for this moment. "You come here often?" Maya laughed lightly, a nervous laugh, but an honest one. "Yeah, I guess I do. You too, right?" And just like that, the silence that had stretched between them for weeks finally broke. When eyes turn into words. After that day, the pattern changed. They started talking, at first small talk, then deeper conversations about dreams, fears, and the quiet loneliness that both of them carried like invisible weight. She learned that he loved sketching cityscapes, not for their beauty, but for their symmetry. He learned that she wrote stories, not because she wanted to be famous, but because she wanted to understand people. Every time they talked, there were still moments of silence, but those silences were different now. They weren't gaps, they were breathing spaces, and within them their eyes kept saying the same old truths. I see you. I understand you. I'm here. The science of connection psychology explains this perfectly. When someone looks at you with genuine emotion, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical responsible for pleasure and attachment. That's why a single look can feel addictive. That's why a stranger's gaze can make your heart race like you've known them for years. For Maya and Armin, it wasn't love at first sight. It was understanding at first glance. And over time, that understanding grew into something deeper, built not on words, but on presence. When words fail, eyes speak. One rainy evening, after months of friendship and quiet moments, they sat under the cafe's awning, watching droplets hit the ground. Neither said much. The world around them blurred in the soft sound of rain. Then Armin turned to her and simply looked. That same look from months ago, but stronger, steadier, filled with the kind of peace that only comes when you finally stop hiding. And she didn't need to ask what it meant. She already knew. The power of a single look. Sometimes, connection doesn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions. Sometimes it starts and ends with the eyes, because the eyes don't lie. They reveal love before it's spoken, truth before it's confessed, and emotion before it's understood. Maya once read that a man in love looks at you when you're not looking, just to memorize you. And sometimes that's all you need to know. So if you ever catch a guy looking at you, really looking, maybe pause for a second before you look away. Because in that moment, he might be saying something his heart hasn't found the words for yet. In the end, Maya and Armin didn't fall in love in one glance. They grew into it, one look at a time. And through those eyes, they both learned a truth that psychology and science only try to explain. That sometimes the most powerful conversations happen without a single word. Moral: when words fail, the eyes take over. They speak of love, longing, fear, and truth, the kind of truths that no language can capture. So the next time someone's eyes find yours and stay a moment too long, remember, it could be the beginning of a story neither of you ever expected to tell.